Hi guys, my name is Nonima Tigela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want us to talk about who controlled the crime scene for the Senzo Meyiwa murder. We want to know what was happening there. Every crime scene has a ruler, not the loudest voice, not the highest rank on paper, the one who arrives first. Because the first authority on scene doesn't just observe reality, they define it. And in the Senzo Meyiwa case, the most dangerous question is no longer who fired the gun, it is this: who controlled the scene before the story was written? Control we all know control is not a metaphor, it's a function. So who was doing that? Let's strip away the emotion. Crime scene control means deciding who enters, who speaks, who waits, who is separated, who gives statements first, who doesn't give statement at all. That's what it means. It means determining what is photographed, what is touched, what is bagged, what is logged, what quietly disappears. This is not theory. This is a standard policing doctrine. That is how things are done. So if a senior officer arrived early and was not recorded, then control was exercised without accountability. The unrecorded authority problem, no one wants to talk about. In any lawful investigation, authority must leave a paper trail. Why? Because the paper trail is the only thing standing between command and cover up. If a senior official is present but not recorded, no responsibility, no audit trail, no accountability, that creates a shadow authority, someone giving instructions without fingerprints. And once that happens, the crime scene is no longer neutral. It becomes managed space. Is that what happened on the Senzo Meyiwa crime scene when he died? Why this case was uniquely vulnerable from the onset. This wasn't an ordinary homicide. This was a national sports icon, a celebrity home, a high-profile occupant, immediate political sensitivity. In such cases, control is everything because the pressure is immediate, stabilizes the narrative, prevents panic, manage reputational fallout, keeps this contained. And the fastest way to do that, control the scene before the docket exists. Do you understand now? There is no docket. People are still busy with their logbooks. Is it logbooks? Whatever books it is that the police have in their hands. But that's where they are writing their notes. Where are those notes? Where are those notes? What came out of those notes? Where is Sheldrick Sibiya's logbook or whatever book that he had? Where is Brigadier Ndlovu's? Where are those things? Who are other officials that were there? Who was controlling the crime scene? And then we deal with the first statement problem. Ask any seasoned investigator. The most important statements are the first ones. Before lawyers, before alignment, before memory is coached. So who decided? Who spoke first? Who spoke later? Who was treated as a witness? Who was treated as a suspect? Who was never treated as either? All of those things, we need them. If scene control happened off the books, then statements sequencing may have been engineered. And once statements are engineered, the case stops being discovered and starts being constructed. And this is how narratives are born. That is where you get narratives, because now there is no one who is like, I'm handling this, do this to others. No one is doing that. So now we are going to deal with narratives, just like we are doing in the Senzo Meyiwa case in court. That's how they are born. Narratives don't emerge in court. They are born at the scene. Once a version takes hold early, early, evidence is interpreted to fit it. Contradictions are smoothed are smoothed over, alternatives are dismissed, investigators unconsciously defend it. This is called confirmation bias, and it is vital to justice. If control was exerted before documentation, then the investigation didn't follow the facts. The facts were trained to follow the story. The legal consequences, if this is true, are as follows. If an unrecorded senior presence influenced the scene, the chain of custody is compromised, witness integrity is tainted, later evidence becomes derivative. The prosecution inherits poisoned votes. Courts call this fruit of the poisoned tree, meaning even clean evidence later can become inadmissible if its origin is corrupted. Do you see the problem that we have here? It's very problematic. The question that destroys comfort. So here is the question no institution wants us. If someone controlled the scene without being recorded, who were they protecting? The accused, the occupants, the institution, the reputation of policing itself, because control is never neutral. It always serves an interest. Now, when it comes to this particular case, a lot of questions are being asked, not because people are innocent, people are guilty, people are what. There's a lot of wrongs that happen, and South Africans want answers. Who controlled the crime scene? Who got there first? After abomthethwa no Matebula. Who got there first and what was happening? What was happening? Now, the case did not collapse by accident. It burned because it was held too early by hands that left no signature. And until South Africa answers who controlled the crime scene, every verdict will sit on a foundation that was shaped before justice ever arrived. So what is happening in court is a result of what happened that night of the 26th of October. Whatever meetings that were held, whatever conversations that were had, everything that was said is because of that night. A lot of things. And there is a timeline between when Senzo died and calling Abo Chikotwala. All of that shinding, it needed to be play out inside the courtroom so that the courts understand what happened there. Why were those things left out? Why were those things left out? That's a big question that we have as a country. Why were those things left out? Why ungathethwa about the calls that Kelly Khumalo made or the calls of Tumelo to the Meyiwa family members? All of those things are not being said. Why? And it boils down to who controlled the crime scene, who told who to do what there. So, guys, I want us to have a discussion about that. I want to hear your views. I want to hear if you think that something is off just by not understanding what happened that night alone, just by not having someone who is said, this one is the one that controlled the narrative that night or controlled the crime scene. And also, why no one speaks of Makhubo being present there that night. I think we need to make a separate video for that. One is, why is there no one speaking about that? Okay, who was going to speak about that if, sorry, what's his name? Sibiya, General Shadrack Sibiya was never called. Why was he never called? Why was he was there? He admits it. He talks about it. But why was, and he even says, no, when I got there, Kwaknuki in Pine jail there. So it was contaminated. That's what he says. So if he is willing to admit that, why was he not given an opportunity to come forward and give his side of the story of what he saw in that court, in that house of the Khumalos? Why Baloyi was selective? Was it Baloyi who was deciding who comes to court, or was it the IO? We need to check that out and do a video also on that too, because now it looks very shady, all of this. All of this looks very shady, and it makes one ask a lot of questions. What are your thoughts when it comes to this? Let's have a conversation on my comment section. Please drop your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Please also make sure you do not forget to like, to share, to comment. And most importantly, please make sure you are subscribed on the channel. Please make sure you are watching the videos up until the end and you are watching the ads that are coming through. When you are doing that, you will be supporting this channel financially and in numbers. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Please do enjoy your day. Bye-bye.